Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Because Football podcast. This is your host, Andrew. Today, very excited to welcome a guest who has not only experience as a football agent, but still actively an agent and also educating the next generation of football fans and professionals who want to become agents themselves and make that lifestyle and career change. We're going to talk a little bit about the World Cup, not only the impact it will have as a cultural impact, as a fan that he's hoping to enjoy, but also how it's going to really set up the North American football market for the future to really continue to grow, as well as some other insights he's gained along the way. So welcome to the pod for us, John Viola.
Hey, Andrew, it's great to be here.
Great to have you as well. And like we said, World Cup, we're going to chat on that. Obviously, you hail from Glasgow, Scotland, right? And very much happy, I'm sure, that Scotland has qualified. Was it 40 years, the last World Cup you guys have been in?
28 years. 28 years.
Okay.
Listen, I'm not happy. I'm delirious. The fact that we're there. Our nation is going crazy about being in the World Cup. It's going to be unbelievable.
I learned the phrase "No Scotland, no party" at Euro 2024 in Germany, and you guys were undoubtedly the everybody's second team, everybody's favorite fan group. What are some of the rumblings, the murmurings, the plans you're hearing for coming to North America, and how's the Tartan Army planning to march through for this World Cup?
I think the whole of Scotland is trying to sell their houses, their cars, their livers, anything to get money to come to the World Cup. We're a passionate nation. It's certainly for us, it's a crazy period. Everybody's talking about it every day. It's on the TV, it's on the radio, and we're really looking forward to showing America who we are, and North America, Canada, and Mexico. But more importantly, getting there and winning games and beating Brazil.
Yeah, absolutely right. You guys have a tough group, right? Morocco, Haiti, not only they're going to be great fan groups, right? We talk a lot about the cultural side of the game here, and they're going to be well represented, especially given Scotland's got two games in New England, right? In Boston, and you've got like a very diverse population there. It's going to be a great time. And I've already seen some of the stories online of all the Scots trying to call up a distant cousin that might be wherever it is in the States looking for a couch to crash on or something like that. So it's going to be a great time. But let's kind of like set you up here. Obviously, you've had a long career and continue to as an agent, as an educator. Obviously you're a fan as you plan to join the World Cup festivities. But what was kind of the formative experience or some initial memories for you of the beautiful game that really got you hooked?
Well, I remember when I was only about 6 years of age, I can just vaguely remember going to see a game in Glasgow, and my father taking me, and the excitement of the crowd. I remember going on the bus and the smell in the bus and people, everybody singing, and with their scarves on and their football strips. And I thought, wow, where am I? And then going into this stadium with like 70,000 people. And it was like, this is an incredible experience. And I'll never forget that forever. And from then on in, I thought, this is for me. I want to be involved in this.
Glasgow is a place that is such a capital of football, right? Like, look at the clubs, the tradition there, and continues to be so, right? And Scotland, I think, still is one of the highest rates in the world of match day attendances and like relative to population and things like that in terms of people who locked in. But what was like, that moment or that final decision of, hey, like I need to be involved in this. It's not enough to just go to matches to experience as a fan. Like I want to be on the inside and also making pivotal decisions to make things tick.
Well, Andrew, I was running a business at the time, a successful business, and I was looking after high-profile footballers for their investments. And one or two of them said to me, look, John, you would be great at helping us do deals, do our contracts, representing us. And, from being a fan and from being in the business and knowing the passion that it takes being in that every day made me think I would love to pivot into this business. But it took time. I had to take a space out of thinking, right, how do I do this? Had to make a big decision of leaving my business. But I'd done it, and here I am 34 years later.
I think a lot of what it takes to be an agent, you got to have that ability to build relationships, right, with the players you're supporting. They need to fully trust in you, right? We were talking with another guest recently. At the end of the day, football's not really a huge industry in terms of the number of clubs and people, right? So you develop a reputation and develop that trust there. What's been kind of a key for you when it comes to that personal relational side of the game? What would you kind of recommend to people, and what do you think have been some things that have set you up for success?
I think the biggest thing, Andrew, is just be yourself and be honest and transparent. Don't bullshit sport directors or players or managers. Just be yourself to say that you're going to do a good job for the player. Be transparent, honest. And also with the clubs, when you're phoning a club and tell them you've got a player, tell them the good and the bad things about the player, and you'll get more respect rather than going on to a club and saying you've got the next Cristiano Ronaldo when you know he's nowhere near that. Throughout my whole career, I've just been who I am, talking like the way I'm talking to you, and try to get my honesty and transparency across, and it's worked well for me throughout these 34 years.
That seems like simple advice, but I think probably a lot of with the people you're helping to transition into a new career as an agent, there's always this position of being new to something. They're trying to get that first player, that first deal, or that first handful of making their name. But I think with that, there can almost be this type of like desperation, right? I just need to get my first deal first. That, but do you see that as a mistake, or is that something that you've encountered a lot with your students, and how important is that mindset piece, as they're getting started out?
I think it is a mistake because a lot of people that I'm teaching, I'm saying it will take time for people to trust you. It will take time for people to get to understand that you've come into the industry. I've seen so many new agents rushing in to try and sign players, and you used a great word there, Andrew, desperate. And desperation shows through your actions. So for me, when I'm telling people, look, take your time about trying to find the right player for the right reasons, who wants to work with you and you want to work with him. I made a mistake at the very beginning of just signing anybody for any reason because I thought it was great, and it didn't work so well at the beginning. So I learned, and I'm teaching people that when you're transitioning, maybe from your job into an agent, doing this alongside your job, take your time to pick the right player, dealing with the right clubs for the right reasons. And again, that might sound like simple advice, but it's something that I'm really, really adamant about with my new students.
We're talking about this personal, this relational side, but FIFA's not just giving out permission to anybody to be an agent, right? With the exam is very strenuous. I think only something like about 18% of applicants actually pass the exam. What's that process look like, and how do you try to prepare people for that initial exam to actually, really have a ticket to play the game?
Good question, Andrew. When it first came out, the FIFA exam, the pass rate was about 48%. And it's got a bit more challenging in the last couple of years. Just today, you're right. Where'd you get the figures from? Well done. It's 18% published by FIFA today in the last year's test. So only 18% of the people passed. It's only 20 questions, multiple choice, open book, done from home. Everybody thinks, oh, this will be easy. But there's over 880 pages of regulation they've got to learn. And fortunately, we looked at these 880 pages, myself, and our company, and with a FIFA lawyer, a course creation professor from Cambridge University, and we looked at these 888 pages and put together a course to help you to pass that, which is interactive and interesting, and past papers, and we're proud to say that with us, we have got over an 80% pass rate. The point I'm trying to get across here is going it alone to try and study these 880 pages is extremely difficult. You should get some type of outside source to get, even if it's a study buddy or somebody to help you through it, because it isn't easy.
Interesting, I think of a lot of exams growing up through schooling, and often it's like the length of the exam that's so daunting, right? But in this case, it sounds like you're just expected to be able to digest, understand, and maintain, a massive amount of information. One thing I've enjoyed from getting to know you and looking, a lot through your LinkedIn as well, is just the absolute volume of stories you have of having, been in the game now 34 years. I think it's so like appealing, the life and role of an agent, because we see the effect, we see the headline of the transfers in the news, but rarely are we really know what's going in, behind the scenes to everything. Could you share a big opportunity you had to learn when it was with a player deal, helping somebody move, and then how then you try to distill that to your students within the academy you have?
Everybody talks about the big deals, Andrea. That's all that they really want to hear. They want to hear, oh, who went to Chelsea, or who went to Inter Miami, or who went to Botafogo, or whatever. That's normal, because we all want to see these big deals. What people don't realise is about 97% of their business is done by smaller deals with agents who have just a general income of maybe what you're earning a year. It's only a small percentage that are doing these big, massive deals. The business is littered with thousands of agents who are earning the same as the average guy in the street. When I'm trying to teach people and I'm saying to them, of course you want to get to that big Premier League piece of business, or to Inter Miami, or to Independiente, or whatever it may be. Of course you want to do that. You've got to aim towards that. But you have to learn your business by doing the smaller deals and moving up the way to get to those bigger deals. And I've seen a lot of agents who chase the big deal right away and getting disappointed, because that's where it's really difficult, because that's a very, very competitive market at that level. I try to teach them to go step by step to get up to the bigger ones, as I said, because so many of them chase that dream too quick and waste a lot of time and effort.
Yeah. Yeah. And just like a player, right, would have those steps in their development, it's the same, it sounds like, with an agent side of the game, dropping these different names of clubs. Some are in the UK, some in continental Europe, some in South America, and I think it's a great thing about football is that it's so global, right? And that's kind of part of the appeal, I think. But what would you share with our audience in terms of like how you've been able to navigate those different cultures, types of communication, even if it might be different from place to place?
Well, first and foremost, one of the misconceptions is that you can't do business worldwide because of the different languages. I found that all over the world, the people at the top level, mostly 95% of the people that are at the top levels, whether it be in South America or whether it be in, Germany or France, everybody speaks English mostly. The people who are trying to do the deals, the people at the corporate level, the sporting directors, the owners, even a lot of the coaches all speak English. They might not be able to understand my Scottish accent.
That was my question. But do they speak Scottish? That's the question. Because as a native, that's something in and of itself. Yeah.
But for me, it's a bit challenging on occasions when you go to certain countries where you don't know how the land lies, you don't know the ethics of the country. But I find that the best part, because that's when you're learning about new people, new cultures, the way they do things. And I find that exciting. Every time I go to a new country, I'm excited coming off a plane saying, right, what's going to happen here? And that's part of the journey. And of course, if you've got good communication skills, you should be okay in most places where you go. And find a local partner that can maybe give you some guidelines. Normally, I'm going to tell you, the taxi driver when you get off a plane, he gives you the inside info. Link in with one of those right away and you might be okay.
Love that advice there. And speaking of those different culture and things, it brings me again back to the World Cup, the North American football market. Canada has its own Premier League that it's building. Obviously, there's a few MLS teams within Canada. We've got the States. Liga MX has long been a very strong league, not only performance, financially, they're able to bring a lot of talent globally and from South America too. What do you see as the impact that people might not be expecting on the business of the game in North America because of the World Cup?
Well, in my opinion, I can go way back to when America was going to go, North America was going to go crazy way back in the early 80s, if you remember, when George Best and Pele and everybody was involved then. We had the World Cup in 1996, and that in itself, we thought it was going to go boom then. But for some reason, I don't know, it's only an opinion, I get a feeling that North America is going to go crazy after this World Cup, and lead up to it and after it. I've just got a feeling that this is a time where the shift will come for businesses in the soccer business, and we'll call it soccer on occasions, in North America, especially in the US of A. I believe that they'll move up the rankings in sports, because I know they're not the top sport, but I think they'll move up the rankings after this World Cup.
Would you see then this is a moment, again, if people listening are like, hey, maybe I do want to be an agent or I want to get into this, like, does it almost feel like too late now that the boom's coming? Do you think this is a good time for them to try to equip themselves with those skills and like really try to dig into things, given that we've got this big event kind of on our doorstep?
This is the time. This is the opportunity. Right now, if you're serious about trying to get into football in any shape or form, whether it be an agent, a sporting director, a coach, a manager, you should be in North America. This is the time. And I believe you've not missed the boat. You're just starting on the crest of a wave. There'll be a lot of fallout after the World Cup where people will be thinking, how do I get involved? If you're in now, this will be the time.
Yeah. It's just one of many kind of areas of the game I think we're all hoping explodes, right? I'm having this conversation constantly with our guests and, people around the continent really of, what do we hope? What do we think? By hosting the tournament, it gives more visibility to a lot of these different clubs and puts kind of even, hopefully we think the domestic game on a higher pedestal as well, in the global perspective. But let's talk too about the role of agents, right? As we say, it's kind of murky and, to the outside, right? People don't see what's happening. There can kind of be sometimes this reputation that agents have of ruining the game or it's almost like interlopers, right? How do you address that even with your own students and really how they approach the role and trying to get that message across to people of like, hey, if football didn't have agents, this is what it would look like. This would be the situation.
Well, first and foremost, if football didn't have agents, the clubs would have great control, like they used to before agents were there. I can go way, way back when one of those first games I went to, there was no such things as agents. And the footballers at that stage were getting less than the guy in the street that was. I remember a very famous footballer saying to me, he was going to play at Glasgow Celtic's ground, where there was like 80,000 in a European night. And he took the bus to the game with the fans. Could you imagine Messi getting on a bus or Ronaldo to go with the fans to the game? That's what it was like then, because the clubs had control and they were using the players. And now, of course, that's all changed dramatically. So without agents, I think there would be a problem. I think agents, again, I would say, have helped, particularly the players and also clubs. Because remember, I represent clubs as well. I don't just represent players. So the clubs need agents to be able to assist them with players and lots of other areas. About 10 years ago, my secretary came in to me and says, "Oh, look at this chairman of a Premier League club is giving what do you call it, football agents real bad stick, John." It wasn't me personally, but saying agents should be out the game and agents this and agents that. And you wouldn't believe this. An hour later, my phone goes, that chairman, "Hey, John, wonder if you can help me. We really need a striker." And I had to laugh. I said, "Look, I'm just looking at your newspaper article about what you're saying about agents." So I'm trying to get across that, of course, clubs give us a bit of bad press, public, but clubs use us as much as what players do.
Yeah, I think that piece you just mentioned of representing clubs too is something that often gets left out. The more I've learned about the industry of football, it's just like part of the infrastructure is, again, the networking abilities of agents have often much better than the clubs themselves. It's just really built into the fabric of the game now. If we talk about, I mentioned your LinkedIn a few times here because, again, I really enjoy the content you're putting out, but you kind of dug into that as a platform for storytelling, but also to connect and network. We typically market this podcast on LinkedIn and share it a lot, given that it is focused on the football industry. What was it, that early inclination that like, hey, this is a platform that deserved your attention? And then how do you just approach that general view of, storytelling and how you want to share not only what you've done as an agent and continue to do, but like how you can help some of your students through the John Viola Academy?
I remember about, maybe 12, 14 years ago, LinkedIn, there was hardly anybody in LinkedIn that was involved with the football community. And I looked at it to go to speak to people about the football business because I was working as an agent. I wasn't educating at that time. I just wanted to go on that platform to see Wizard football community, would they welcome coming on to it? And I started speaking to people that were in football, and it's grown and grown and grown, so much so that LinkedIn for business, people that are in the football industry, is very commonplace, as you probably know. And for me, I'm speaking to people on it about my experiences and who I am and where I've been and what I've done about the football agent's business, because look, as you said, we do get a bad image, and I don't believe it's warranted in a lot of occasions. There's an unbelievable, fantastic agents out there doing a great job, but we don't hear about those guys. We only hear about the bad guys, and there's bad guys in every industry. There's bad podcasters. There's bad guys that are owning clubs. There's bad guys that own restaurants, but they don't get the same bad press as we do. So I'm trying to help people understand what this job is really all about from my perspective of 34 years, putting hard grind into doing the job and having great times and bad times. And hopefully that's coming across.
And do you feel like social media feeds into the networking and marketing the agents have to do of themselves, given that it is kind of a lot of private relationship building conversations? Is there a need to be more public about what you're doing as an agent?
Well, for me personally, if you don't tell anybody you're an agent, how do people know what you're doing? I'm an advocate, especially on LinkedIn, of people telling them where they are, who they work for, what they do, the deals possibly they've been involved in, sharing good and bad stories, because again, the more we know about what agents do, the better it'll be for people to understand us. But not just that, because the more people you speak to, as long as you're doing it honestly and transparently and correctly, the more people you speak to, the better chance you've got of possibly picking up new connections and networks. And I'm a big advocate. In fact, I do a session with my new students about how they should market themselves professionally.
Yeah, I think that's a piece that, you know, obviously that everybody has to gain from, right? And I think that when I look around, especially, you know, in North America, the professional landscape, there's just so much room to grow, you know, for people to really share what they're doing. And I think it enriches the game that we have a lot of people sharing their own story rather than just like the traditional outlets top-down approach, because there's so many elements of this game that appeal to people that you know, fans and football obsessives do want to know about. And again, I think that's one space that it very much is the case, and also, you know, of course has that business function. So about, you know, you mentioned one of the sessions you do with your students. So let's talk about the ways that you like to deliver the support. You know, you mentioned there's the course. I know you guys have an upcoming event, I believe, as well in the Bahamas too. But again, given that it is a very kind of nuanced industry, what do you feel the ways that you try to support your students and in what manner?
Well, first and foremost, I speak to students like the way I'm speaking to you. I mean, I think students all over the world. I can't be in every city and all over the world. So we educate people through Zoom calls, Teams calls. It's imperative. But we also have events, like we have an event coming up in January in the Bahamas, the 20th of January, where for 4 days I'm bringing students and people from all over the world, mostly North America, and it's face to face, which is magical, because you get to meet the people, you talk to them, you're with them, they get a feeling for who you are, especially when we're delivering something that we're really, really passionate about. I'm passionate about teaching people this business the correct way, so that the next generation won't have the same problems of saying, oh, these guys are good, bad, or indifferent, mainly bad at the moment. I'm going to tell you, Andrew, I've made a lot of mistakes, and I don't want the new generation to make the same mistakes that I've made. So live is a big part of what we do, and I love speaking live with people, because as I say, there's nothing better when you come off that stage, you can sit and network and join and speak to see each other's eyes face to face. This is good, but that's much better.
Yeah, no, I can tell that, you know, from our first call together and through this, you know, that vibrancy you've got, right, and desire to connect with people, in addition to still being an agent yourself. So you're seeing things, you know, happen in real time. But I think the fascinating thing about what you're doing through the educational side is that again, come back to this image of the agent side of the game as being closed off, right? Of maybe being just a place for former players, for people who already have connections. And do you think that deters people, like that type of misconception, even the barriers to entry? Like, we talk about the exam, that's a piece, but then the practicalities of really making things happen.
Well, Andrew, it used to be definitely an inner circle. It still is in a certain way, where the only way you got to become a football or soccer agent was because you knew somebody in the industry, or your father knew somebody, or you were an ex-footballer. That used to be a lot like that. 8 years ago, I said, I'm going to open this playbook to people to show them how they can do it, because I want to pass on a legacy of me teaching people the way it should be done. And I'm super excited about showing people how to do that. It has been notoriously difficult to be able to get into this industry, but it's easier now because people are beginning to say, hold on a minute, I don't need to be a lawyer. I don't need to know a guy at a club. I don't need to have a connection with an ex-player or whatever. This is all about people like me who come from a background with nothing to do with football. And I want to pass on that it can be done. And we're showing over 1,000 students how to do it. So it used to be difficult, but it's a bit easier now.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, I think that speaks to the tools that we have to be able to share all this information. Again, my curiosity acting through this podcast is always just exploring different parts of the game, right? And different parts of the industry. And I think that's what's so interesting about what you're doing, but also the element of trying to give the information and support people to take action where they are.
Talking about teaching people, I think it's really important that they see you live. I actually had a guy flew over last week to Scotland from Washington who has gone through my mentorship program, and he sat with me in my office and watched me live make calls, do deals, speak with clubs, speak with other agents, introducing players to him. And he came away from that 5-day event with me there was an event come to my office, and he went back saying, wow, I've learned more in 5 days what I could have done in, a year or 2 years being an agent. And that's what it's all about teaching people live like that. And he flew all the way from Washington and taking the gamble, will this work? Will I get enough out of this, taking 5 days away from my family? And since then, he's been non-stop off the phone talking about him doing deals, and it's been great to see how that worked for him. So, teaching people whilst you're still in the business, I don't think it can get any better. I haven't turned into a professor. I'm there still live, trying to do the deals and facing the up-to-date challenges that they're likely to face as well, which is amazing.
Yeah, you're still a practitioner doing it, right? You're still seeing how the industry is changing and seeing all those trends happening in real time. We talked a little bit about there's the mega clubs, the mega stars, the 50+ million transfers, and that's certainly one corner of the industry, but there's so much more than that. What would you define like success for a lot of your students or agents at different parts of their career? What does success look like?
That's a very good question. Success is different for different people. I have people that I've brought into the industry and maybe they're earning $50,000 a year, but then they transition to becoming an agent and earning the same amount of money. But they've got more freedom. They've got something where they're waking up in the morning, they're passionate about it. They've got time for their family. They're making their own decisions or travelling and in amongst something that they're really passionate about. Success to other people is, hey, I want to go out there and get to aim for the top and earn $1 million a year and do big $1 million deals, and that's happened as well. So everybody's different. But for me, the biggest success for people is people who love what they're doing, and if they can still feed their family or even make more money and have more freedom, then for me that's a success. And satisfaction. Hey, you don't get much better satisfaction when you're sitting in a stand and your player's on the pitch and he scores a goal and you're working with him through his career. You don't get much more satisfaction when they lift the cup or pull on that international shirt and you're saying, hey, I brought him into the industry, I'm with him, and you're part of that journey. What a feeling.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that touches on not only the player's journey, but also of an agent as well. We talked a little bit about we all want to achieve that success, but there's also the exam, there's all these social skills. But what does it take, like, from a mindset perspective, for somebody trying to break in? What are like those intangibles that you see, maybe you can try to identify in somebody that are harder to teach because it really comes from someone's life and their character?
I'll give you a great story. A guy tapped my door 4 years ago and delivered something for me, right? Delivery guy. And he said to me, "Oh, you're John Viola, the famous football agent." I think he was just pandering to my ego, right? He said, "I want to become a football agent." And he was foreign. His English wasn't exactly fantastic. I said, "Sure, contact my website." Sure enough, he did. And sure enough, he said he spoke to me. Now, this guy, he came from Georgia, near Russia. Was a delivery guy, but was a coach and came to the UK to learn how to coach. Didn't work out for him, but he's still doing some coaching. Delivery guy and an Uber driver. 4 children. He sat the test, passed it with flying colours, came to work for my agency and put in some amount of effort, time, effort, work. And now, I'm proud to say, has his own agency. And we're still doing deals and business together. I'm proud of him. So you're asking the question, passionate about football. He was so passionate about football. Every day or every night he tried to contact me. "Oh, I've got this player, tell me about this." Unbelievable, which is great. Hard work ethic, really hard work ethic. And didn't have the big knowledge about it and been able to pass the test,
Right,
but he put in the hours to pass it. So for me, I'm looking for the transferable skills of people who are really saying to themselves, "Wow, I want into this business. I really want to get in and start doing deals and rubbing shoulders with the football community and maybe get to the dizzy heights of doing something in the Premier League or the MLS." And I look for that more than anything else.
Yeah, because it's such a demanding role, right? I know for some of the agents we've talked to, your job is mostly to get a good situation for your players financially and a good setup so they can succeed and perform. But then also oftentimes, there can be these other demands from players that they have in their personal lives, right? And things they need to help. We've talked with agents about, if a player moves clubs, the agent's trying to help the player find a good living situation, right? Or all these things on the personal side that I think, again, we don't see. Some of the, if you think of your 34 years, what are some of the more unique situations maybe you found yourself in when it comes to supporting some of your players?
Yeah, you hit me with that question there. Let me think. I had a player that was going to Russia a long time ago, before about 20 years ago, and him and I jump on a plane to go to Russia, done the deal, and he's like, "So what do we do now?" I'm like, "I've never been to Russia before, I don't know." And then the next thing I knew, I phoned my wife and says, "Look, I think I'm going to have to stay here for a couple of weeks to be able to help him to adapt to what Russia was like," even though I didn't know. But together, the two of us were navigating what he had to do to get a phone, to be able to open a bank account, to understand a little bit of the language, because at that time the clubs were just bringing in players and saying, "Like, go and get on with it." So here I was in Moscow 20 odd years ago with this young player, and the two are looking at each other saying, "What do we do now?" So I stayed there with him, and they, believe it or not, got to know a wee bit about how it operated there and how their systems worked. And they learnt in 2 weeks, had to learn a lot. But it was funny, every day we were coming back and saying, "What happened today?" So what I took from that and learnt from that is, when you're taking a player to another country, an agent should go with them and spend a bit of time breaking in, because a lot of clubs don't give you that support.
Exactly.
There's more now, but then it was difficult.
I think that's something people so often overlook. They look at footballers as just like robots, but especially in the case of a massive lifestyle change, going to a new country, having no social circle, and really, as a footballer, it's such a high pressure industry, right? So it speaks to kind of, again, the personal side of what you're bringing to things and going along players. And back to, one of our first parts of this conversation was selecting the right clients, right? Selecting the right players, someone you're willing to do that for, not somebody, you've got this person who is maybe not the right situation, and now you're stuck in Russia for 2-3 weeks helping them out, right? And the satisfaction, as you mentioned.
Another wee quick story about a player that I brought from Ghana, and he came from Ghana, brought him to Scotland, of all places, and he's like, "This is amazing, different," and he was adapting quite well until it came to winter time, and of course it snowed he'd never seen snow before. He phoned me and says, John, what is this outside? I know it's snow, but what kind of boots do I put on? What do I do? How do I get to the training ground? It's like here with snow. And I found it funny that he'd never seen snow, and I had to sort of guide him through what it was all about. But just the fact that, you know, when you're taking somebody somewhere different, you've got to remember it's not all about where you're from, right? It's about them adapting to where they go to and being with them for that period. Understanding the player when you're taking them somewhere different, especially if it's somebody young, somebody that's inexperienced, and especially if it's a country that could be challenging.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that one, another agent we've spoken to worked a lot in with African players too, and mentioned that after a while he just tried to avoid winter transfer deals in general for African players to Europe, because he's like, they were just setting them up for a lose-lose situation. You know, they were miserable, and then they couldn't adapt to playing. All that. It's just, again, it shows you really have to be thoughtful on a human side and be aware of people's like cultural background too.
But there's a positive side to that, because if you bring an African to Europe in winter, especially Scotland or England, and he does okay in the first month, you know you've got a winner.
That's true. That's true. It separates the elite from the rest, right? Yeah. And I mean, speaking of these players, right? Let's go to our five-a-side segment. So we have our all-time five-a-side. It's a segment we love to do with all our guests. We got 5 players. Well, technically 4, because you got to pick yourself. So that's the part we love to do here. So you got yourself and 4 other players. Could be anyone that we've heard of having a former, client or current or whatever or not. Totally up to you. But if we said you've got your all-time five-a-side team, first, where are you playing, John, in that team? And then who are you building around you?
I'm playing in goals because I'm rubbish at football, right? I'm playing in goals. I used to play right back. Even though I'm a short guy, I would have to be in goals in five-a-sides. I used to play right back for my office team, and everybody used to play on the left side. They put all the ball to the left side because I was so bad, right? So I love playing, enthusiastic. I could run all day, but I wasn't the best. And then if I was thinking about who I'd like in front of me to defend, I've got a really good friend and a player I looked out for his whole career, and his name is Craig Moore. Now, Craig Moore's a player I took from Glasgow Rangers to Crystal Palace, Newcastle, Borussia Mönchengladbach, even back to his home team, Brisbane Roar in Australia. I even took him to a club called Kavala in Greece. Centre back, solid. I wouldn't want to play against him, right? I would want him right in front of me to make sure nobody would be getting past him, because I'm not even good in goal either. So that would probably be my centre back. Oh, next one. Next one I was thinking about, look, somebody that I saw, and I thought, wow, I'm just so glad I saw him live and watched him play, and that would be Maradona. Maradona would have to be in my five-a-side. He's just been like somebody that I've looked at all through my whole life. And then, of course, childhood heroes, Kenny Dalglish, who I'm sure you know, from Liverpool. He went from Glasgow Celtic to Liverpool. And he must be my five-a-side. He's just been like unbelievable throughout his whole career. My hero is a guy that played for Glasgow Celtic called Jimmy Johnston. And when I went to my first game, that's who caught my eye when I was only 6 or 7 years of age. And since then, he became like my hero. He was a right winger, and a lot of the younger audience won't remember. But please go and look him up now. Go and look him on YouTube. He was classed as one of the best players in the world. He was in the Lisbon Lions team that won the first British team to win the European Cup, 1967. And believe it or not, everybody at that time, in 67, 68, 69, was talking about him being the best player in the world. He would be worth 100 million today. Easy. 100 million. And the interesting thing about him is I used to stand outside the ground waiting for his autograph, right? And then, as I came on later in life, I met him, and him and I became friends, and unfortunately he passed away. But it was great to meet this guy that I used to watch. But still, he would be in my five-a-side as the top player, because you just give him the ball, he'd beat 4 players and score a goal. We would win easy. So that's my five-a-side team.
Nah, he's a name that definitely stands out of having done, some my footy history, right, and research as one that and that whole Lisbon Lions team, right. The remarkable thing for me is they're all within 20 miles or so of each other, grew up, and then they conquer Europe. It's an incredible story, and so cool for you personally, like that full circle of fan to then because of the decisions you made to get into the game, being able to actually get to know him and meet your hero. So I hope you got one of those autographs at some point.
Sorry?
So I hope you got one of those autographs
at some point. I have. I had a book, and I remember them coming out one day, and I was only about 9 years of age, and I'm looking up and going, he's coming towards me. He's coming towards me. I ran up and they signed the book. And the funny story is, when I got to know him and I got to speak to him, I told him that story. He says, "Oh, I remember you." I think he was just saying that.
Of course. Well rehearsed, yeah. No, brilliant. I think if we take that team, John, and compare it to our all-time selections here on the podcast, except for Maradona, those are all first-time selections, I think. So Johnston, Dalglish, and Craig Moore, and then yourself in goals. It's so interesting because I learned this through hanging out with the Scotland fans at Euro 2024, the amount of flags, scarves, the song, the Scots, you guys love Maradona.
Well, we do, but I don't know if you know the reason why. Is because of the hand of God when it went against England. He scored the goal, and of course there's a big rivalry between Scotland and England, and everybody loves him. I loved him as a player, but also as a Scotland fan, with the rivalry between Scotland and England. It's a bit of fun that we have. Especially when we're taunting the English fans, it's a wee bit of fun.
Yeah. It's a shame that I don't know if you're going to cross paths with many Argentina fans, but I can't imagine that party. I'm fortunate that I got to spend time in Argentina too, and love the football culture, and have many friends there. And even at the Euros in Germany, there were a handful of Argentines, and they just gravitated to the Scots, and it was just amazing to see. And again, just a great example of what football does for us, right? Maybe not understanding each other's language, but just, hey, Maradona, and knowing the power that he has to bring people together. But that's the game.
Maradona interviewed, I don't know, about 10 years ago, and he was talking about, apart from Argentina, who are your favourite fans? And he said, there's no question about that, it's the Scottish fans. Because everybody that's Scottish that bumps into Maradona gives him a big hug and says, "You're my man."
Yeah.
You can imagine how he's got that affinity with the Scottish fans. But the World Cup and the Euros, it brings together all these nations, and it's party time, it's friendship, it's amazing. And I've been to many World Cups, and the next one coming up, I'm really looking forward to. What people from the outside that are listening about football is maybe don't realise about how strong that bond is between when the countries meet, and it's fantastic.
Yeah. I think the celebration, the party, is something we're absolutely looking forward to, and hoping to host, stateside.
Johnny, my son's next. I'm next door. Johnny.
All good.
Just take a wee break, eh? Johnny. This light back on. Is that okay? Or no, you want to keep the same light, don't you?
It's all. Yeah, I mean, it's all. One more question here, so I think we'll be good with that. I'll cut out the calls for your assistant there, right? Yeah. That'll be our intro.
You can do that as an outtake of this. This is how we started. Shouting my son to come in with a light. Let people see that part. I think that's fun because look, I think the most important thing when you're doing these podcasts is just be yourself. Don't try to be fancy or give stock answers. And then some of the things I might say, people say that's shit. Or it didn't sound right or whatever. But I would rather just be myself. That's the way I operate.
Agreed. Yeah, that's why I like just being able to freewheel with these conversations, see where they go. But yeah, in terms of the one surprise I have for you, right, for this podcast, that we surprise all our guests, but it's a good one, I think. But it comes back to, again, like we were just talking about, what the World Cup does, what football in general does. Could you complete the sentence, because football
is my life? Is that it? Because football is my life, or because football is something I love.
And that's why we love doing this. So many so many things that the game offers to us, whether it is as a fan or somebody getting into like the business proper like yourself, offers us so many ways to like experience life. And this, I kind of talk of it like a bubble sometimes. It's like football bubble we get to live in. I feel, grateful to be able to do that. And thanks for sharing, your experiences and insights from your time in that bubble.
Andrew, absolute pleasure anytime. I'm looking forward to seeing you in the US of A. And in particular, I would like to come back to you straight after the World Cup and we'll talk about how spectacular the Scottish fans will be welcomed in America and us showing you about how we sing, no Scotland, no party.
No party. That's right. That's right. Everybody's going to be belting that out. Maybe we'll cross paths as well. My World Cup schedule is forming, but I was fortunate to go up to New England as part of our road trip to the World Cup series, where we're looking at the football culture and community everywhere. It's such a football-rich place and just has so much going on for it. And I think, Scotland, all the great teams are there. It's going to be an excellent place to experience the tournaments. Everybody listening and watching, thank you for being here. If this conversation has moved something in you, like, I think this could be the thing for me, we've got all the links in the description to reach out to John to see the information on his academy as well. But we'll see you guys on the next episode. Peace.
Pleasure. Thank you. See you soon.